Another day, another 4-star. That's just how we do it now in Waco. This is Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by Gametime. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. I'm your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and the Cam Show on Rogue Media Sports Network. And it's once again another day to gloat on the recruiting trail for your Baylor Bears. This feels good. Like I missed when Baylor used to get like really good recruits. It's happening again. In the weirdest time. Okay, I had a good family friend tell me once, we were kind of joking. This was right after I graduated college and I was making no money. And I was like, man, I don't want to be old, but I want to have some money. I'm like, when does it start? When does both those things start to happen? And he kind of joked with me. He said, when you least expect it. When's Baylor going to get back on the recruiting trail and get some good players to come in here? When you least expect it. After a 3-9 season, because the Bears just pulled down their third 4-star recruit in the last, 2 weeks here? 2 weeks? Running back Michael Turner of Richland High says yes. Picks Baylor, the 4-star, one of the highest recruits in their history. Picks them over TCU, Florida, Oklahoma, Washington, Tech, Utah, SMU. Some conference rivals there, some blue bloods there, some geographical battles there in the case of SMU. But once again, it's a strong prospect from the DFW Metroplex who is looking at SMU and just so happens to play the position that Keenan Hall coaches. Michael Turner, the latest to commit to the Baylor Bears. We talked about him a little bit on the show on Wednesday, but the production is just off the charts. There's so much that isn't seen in the stats when it comes to these kinds of recruits. You got to look at the tape, and sometimes they don't, play all 3 years or whatever. But he absolutely has that production. Last year, over 200 attempts, 1,668 yards, 23 rushing touchdowns, as well as 2 receiving touchdowns on there too. 1,668 yards. I mean, that is just... And averaged 8 yards a carry on 300 plus rushes across his sophomore and junior seasons. This is from Hudson Standish, who is a national analyst on 247 Sports. We, of course, talked with Will Turboff a little bit about Michael and the things that he got to see. He is young for his grade. Take that how you will. But 6 feet, 200 pounds, already has that college type frame. Of course, he could be a little taller, but he's already had a heavy workload, and he is produced, as you saw in those numbers right there. I mean, not just fast, but quick from what I could see. Again, amateur scout, Cam Stewart, which those are two different things. And you like to have both from a running back. And Hudson Standish, going back to what he said, high floor with developmental potential thanks to physical and athletic markers. I like that. Projects as a high major back who could play early and even become a backfield stalwart en route to pro consideration. That's what we're talking about with this kid. We're not just talking about Saturdays. That seems like a given. We're talking about potentially Sundays for a kid like Michael Turner. A high floor guy. It's not often, even when Baylor's going well in terms of recruiting, that you say that about their prospects. Because I've mentioned this 1,000 times. Baylor, even in their best years, they were getting a lot of 3-stars and making them into 5-stars. That doesn't mean these guys have really high ceilings. Michael Turner has a high ceiling as a 4-star. And in fact, if you look through Bears Illustrated 247, where our pal Will Turboff works, and they are the best at this recruiting stuff, you look at their all-time commitments, and you go down the list, number 9 and number 10, Camoran Morgan, Michael Turner, respectively. How about that? 2 of your top 10 recruits of all time, according to 247, in the last few weeks here. Man, that is a big deal for this coaching staff. and the future of this program. By the way, you ready to hear some of the others? Let's go the other way. Number 8, Andrew Billings, Waco High legend. Corey Coleman at 7. Javonte McGee at 6. Ahmad Dixon at 5. Davion Hall at 4. Remember, picked Baylor over Alabama. Number 3, Jarrett Stidham. Number 2, KD Canada. Number 1, the oft-forgotten Robbie Rhodes. And now you have 2 guys coming in the class of 2025 who are among that ilk, Kamora Morgan and Michael Turner. And man, I couldn't be more excited about the way this is going. I love Baylor's new recruiting tactic of, hey, you know what we should do? Let's go out there and get the best players available. Let's just go get some really good players. And that's what's happening. And it's such a breath of fresh air because I've said this a lot too, but the last couple of years, they've gotten on a lot of tables. They've gotten their hats on a lot of tables that they probably weren't supposed to. But pretty rarely did the recruits put the hat on. And now with some different coaches behind the scenes that are actually out there making the connections and making the calls, those hats are being put on. And I just, wow, what a 2 weeks. Kamora Morgan, who felt like a long shot with the offers that he had, picks Baylor. Taz Williams, talk about a long shot. Again, weren't on the table, weren't in the top 4. Shocks Nation by picking Baylor. And now Michael Turner, who Baylor was after for a long time, like those other 2. Baylor was always a consideration here, but I just read you the other teams on the list. You know, TCU and SMU, which have been hot the last couple of years recruiting-wise in that area, especially Oklahoma, Florida, Blue Bloods, says, I want to build something at Baylor. Man, by the way, that's two composite 4-star running backs in this class, with Caden Knighton from Oklahoma, 3-star, like kind of overall 4-star composite, which the composite really actually matters more. And now Michael Turner, 2 composite 4-star guys. Whew. And Michael Turner doesn't do a lot of talking, man. He does his talking on the field. And I really like that. And I love this crop of running backs they've got in the next couple of years with some of the guys that are already here, with Dawson Pendergrass and Richard Reese still has a couple years left. And Bryson Washington, and now Caden Knighton and Michael Turner. Now, in today's college football landscape, not all those guys stay, but I think they've got a real solid running back room and a coach who can really utilize the space for the running backs to run into with Jake Spavital. Just can't say enough about how great this is. I hope we have Keenan Hall forever in whatever capacity he wants, because there are going to be bigger programs that are looking as soon as this year with this kind of momentum. It's the best recruiting momentum that Baylor's had in a few years now. But what I do worry about is that last time they had this much recruiting momentum wasn't like the high end, but in terms of getting quality players back to back, they went 1-11. But in terms of the overall recruiting class and the high end guys, I mean, this is as good as they've had it since that spring that Art got fired, which was the best recruiting class in their history. They are now number 3 in the Big 12 for the 2025 rankings and up in the top 30 at number 28 nationally. In fact, number 3 has not been updated. Let's keep an eye on that. 247 has not updated to have Michael Turner in there, but they are at number 3 as we speak now, and they could jump as high as number 2, potentially number 1. Who knows? But man, this is an incredible run. Welcome to the family, Michael Turner. Whew. Bring some of your friends too. We'd love to have all of them. Today's episode of Locked On Baylor is brought to you by Gametime. Truly, there's nothing like going to the ballpark, summertime, good weather, amongst friends, hot dogs, all that great stuff. I'm going to be going to America's most beloved ballpark, Fenway, in about almost 2 weeks here. And I got my tickets already through Gametime because it's the only place for me to buy tickets. If you want to go through the rigmarole of all the other crap that the other ticketing sites throw at you, go ahead, be my guest. But if you want to take the guesswork out and find like an actual enjoyable ticket buying experience, Gametime is your spot because they've got flash deals and zone deals going on throughout the week. They've got the best last-minute deals. If you're just in town, you're like, hey, I want to go to a game. They've also got all-in pricing, which is my favorite part. The price you see and the seat you see, the price you're going to pay, and the place you're going to sit. I love that. They've also got the lowest price guarantee, or Gametime is going to credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Wow. Just more recruiting highs. Golly, is that fun? Is that fun to be talking about good, like real good top recruits coming in here? Might this finally be Baylor kind of turning the page? I sure hope so. I really sure hope so. In terms of, hopefully a couple of years for good recruiting. But anyway, looking at the guys in place right now, and specifically the head coach, Dave Aranda, he had some interesting sound from Vegas that we talked about it a little bit with Carter Yates and the story he wrote of the duality of Dave Aranda, but I really like what Dave had to say, and it's kind of about him being introspective, which we know he is. But this year it seems like more than past years that he's been introspective and really looking inside to how he can change. And the answers feel better is what I'll say. We know the ultimate answers on the field. Trust me. Don't get in the comments. I know, but it feels like, okay, this guy's starting to get a little bit more from a fan's perspective. So here's what Dave Aranda had to say about the person he wants to be, as well as the football coach that he wants to be.
One of the fears when I took this job was that I would be, walking down the hall and someone would be walking the other way or walking towards me, and it'd be a player or it'd be a staff member or a wife of a staff member or someone, and I wouldn't recognize them or I wouldn't acknowledge them. I'd just be so lost in whatever, football. And I can do that. I've been known to do that, And so I didn't want to do that here. And I just, I think there's got to be some. I'm counting on some growth from the person that I was to this version of it, or we can balance that out better.
Okay, so the way I'm going to talk about this and the way I'm going to talk about Dave Aranda seems to have become like the most divisive subject amongst the current Baylor sports landscape. And let me first say, I get it. Personally, at the end of last season, as a Baylor fan, I wanted to move on. I wanted them to fire Dave Aranda. I wanted them to find a new guy. That said, I think I speak for most Baylor fans in saying we want this thing to work. We want Dave Aranda to work. We want his ideologies and the way he goes about it to work. But so far, majority of his seasons, it hasn't worked. He had a great one in there and 3 losing seasons around it. So this is not me saying like that this is working. We're just not looking in the right spot. No. But I like introspective Dave. I like that. And the honesty, which sometimes was too honest last year. I still overall really enjoy that from a coach. I think it's refreshing. And it's kind of funny the way he put it. And he said stories like this similarly, where he's talking about, I don't want to not know the people around me. I want to be basic. And he kind of said this with J-Mo last week. He wants to be a good father, a good husband, as well as a good football coach, because in the past he was all ball all the time, thinking only about football, and it damaged, I think, his relationships with people around him and family and friends. And it almost seemed like he was saying, both in this and the sound I played last week, it's like, maybe I need to tone it down on being a good person so I could be a good football coach. And I think he's still trying to find that happy medium. That's obviously tongue in cheek, by the way, before you guys take off and run with that. And it seems to be like a great kind of folly for all head coaches in college and in the pros, even some big high school programs. It's like you almost have to pick one. Be the great model parent and husband, or be the great football coach. And unfortunately, it feels like a lot of the time they have to pick one. And I know Dave has been singing the praises of, person over player, and we're going to build, culture and good people, good students. And like, this is what I mean when I say we all love that. We all want that. Just because people don't like the old person over player phrase, which they seem to have gotten rid of, doesn't mean they want, thugs in here. They don't want criminals playing for the program. They just want better football. And that's what any college football fan wants. And I think the fact that Dave is willing to look inside himself and make changes. We talked about not doing the same kind of militaristic routine, letting guys wear their hair down a little bit, figuratively speaking, and let them wear chains at practice and things like that. That shows a tangible change of mentality, of, hey, why don't we kind of let this thing work? Let's see. There's more than one way to peel an onion. There's more than one way to bake a cake. Let's see how this thing is going to work. And I just enjoy his honesty, which is divisive amongst the Baylor fans. I know a lot of you would rather he just do the canned, kind of cliche filled answer instead of actually saying what's on his mind, no matter how long that takes. By the way, he's gotten a little more succinct. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. I've been able to use like 30, 45-second Dave Aranda sound bites, which was 404 error, page not found for this first 4 years here. He doesn't appreciate the questions as much, but he is a little bit more succinct. So, but all that to say, at the end of the day, this is off-season crap, right? Like, we love Dave's personality, a lot of us, but if they go 4-8, we don't love it. We all loved it in 2021. We didn't love it in 2023. And if it's another losing season, I don't care if he's the nicest guy in the world. Everyone talked about how nice guy Morris was. He didn't win football games. And I hope that Dave can still be a good parent and a good husband. And let's win some damn football games, man. Let's win some football games. And I think the first step in that was surrounding himself with what I think is a better coaching staff, if we're being totally honest, with what we've seen Keenan Hall do, with what we've seen in the track record of Jake Spavital. I think it's just simple as that. I think he's hired a better staff, and that's why I'm a little more confident in this year's team. But as we'll look at throughout the next month before game 1 against Tarleton State, there's still a lot of question marks in 2024. There's a lot of exclamation points and things to look forward to in 2025. But in terms of the here and now, there is still a lot of work to be done. Let's just say that. But I like introspective Dave. I do. Sue me. I like Dave in general, but I don't like his record. And yeah, the stuff gets a little tired when they're not winning. But I like, as a believer in therapy, okay, as someone who desperately needs the therapy he goes to, I believe in the power of therapy and introspective looks, and looking inside yourself. So I like that our head football coach can do that and actually talk to us about it. I enjoy that. But if it's 4-8, we need some better therapists or something. I don't know. Well, there was some more Baylor to the pros news. By the way, before I get into Mason Marriott and congratulate him, I don't typically do segments or shows that are about Baylor in the pros because I don't think you guys necessarily care that much. But I did see last month that I think it's either 5 or 6 Bears are in Major League Baseball, the most ever at one time. And that's really cool. That's really cool. Steve Rodriguez couldn't get them past the regionals, but man, he had an eye for talent. And he put guys in the pros, man. I watched the Red Sox game the other day. They're facing Kansas City. Nick Lofton in the pros. Obviously, Max Muncy has made a great name for himself. Davis Wenzel was playing for the Rangers this year. Shea Langoliers was dominating the Rangers this year. You know, it's awesome to see that many guys. Cody Bradford, of course, World Series ring on his finger with the Rangers, his hometown team. That's really, really fun to see. And there are some other Bears that are ready to break into the majors as well. And one that is looks like going to sign, got drafted, Mason Marriott, drafted by the defending National League champion Arizona Diamondbacks in the 6th round of the MLB draft the other day. Don't love that the MLB draft is over the All-Star break, especially in a year like this where it seems even later than normal. Lose a couple crucial weeks of development if I'm a team that's drafting someone, but that's neither here nor there. That is not for this podcast. That's for another podcast, I'm sure. But Mason Marriott drafted in the 6th round, and I found myself being like really happy for the guy. I'm always happy when Bears get drafted, but with what Mason Marriott's had to go through the last couple of years, I think this was especially like heartwarming because Mason Marriott is looking at Baylor and commits to Baylor, and then the wheels fall off of Baylor, right? Steve Rodriguez is fired. Mitch Thompson comes in. It's a big learning curve between his freshman and sophomore year there, and he rolled with the punches. Most of the team left. He stayed. He was a late inning bullpen guy, high leverage guy who turns into the Friday starter. He was like Rick Wild Thing Vaughn when he first started. The walk numbers were not terrific and were never great, but I look at the stats and I see a guy who threw a lot of crap, not throwing, but like within a lot of crap that was happening around the program in terms of just really having to strip this thing down and rebuild. He made like tangible leaps and bounds. The ERA was never the strong suit. This year it was just under 6. But you could see the strides he was making in his game. Again, I talk about the walk numbers. His freshman year, he had more walks than strikeouts. Yeah, 26 to 22 in terms of walks to strikeouts. And then even his sophomore year last year, 50 strikeouts to 40 walks. Still not great. Not great. And nothing to totally write home about this year, but 67 to 35. That's a big difference, man. To go plus 43 in your strikeout total in 3 years, or yearly, I guess I should say, in 3 years to go from 22 in a year to 65, bumps up the walks by 11, but that's in 44 more innings pitched. So just really I really, really enjoyed watching Marriott, especially at the beginning part of this year where he was lights out. He had that great start up at the Arlington, right? They were in Arlington this year, not Houston. He was terrific and had a real good start to the season as the Friday night guy. I know he's battled some injuries here and there, but the numbers got better. That walks per 9, man, went from 9 for every 9 innings to less than 5. And the strikeouts per 9 went up to 8.5 strikeouts per 9, man. That's not a bad place to work. I wouldn't be surprised to see Mason Marriott find the right coaching in the minor leagues and really work on some pitches. I know he was talking with Matt Mosley on our show, the Matt Mosley show. He was talking about working on some pitches, and I think that kid's got some nasty in him, and you could see him as once again, a high leverage reliever here in the major leagues someday. And I hope that is the case. But just wanted to give a special shout out to him just because of what the team has gone through the last few years. It hasn't been a fun situation. We know there's good seeds there, and I personally like the direction that it's going, but that does not mean that it was fun the last couple of years to be rooting for Baylor baseball, to the point where some of our Big 12 rivals were asking if Baylor even played the sport anymore. But Mason Marriott has stuck through all of that. Good Cape League guy too. It's too bad it was Hyannis and not Wareham. And I'm excited to see how he progresses through the minors and some of these other Baylor guys that are knocking on the door. I don't want to belabor the point of looking at Bears in the pros, but I am really excited to see where that goes. Anyway, get involved down in that comment section. How about it? Let me know what you think about another 4-star committing to Baylor. Let me know what you think about Keenan Hall. Let me know what you think about introspective Dave. Am I giving too much benefit of the doubt there? Please let me know. Please do, because there's going to be a lot more Dave Aranda talk before the kickoff of football season, just so you know. And what you think about this baseball program and the guys heading up to the major leagues. I think it's fun in that major league respect. And I hope that, that we kind of hit the ground running here the next year or two and get this program back to where it needs to be. Drop that down in the comments below. Be sure to like, subscribe, ring that notification bell to get alerted whenever we are dropping here on YouTube. We also have it going wherever you get your podcast, and it's completely for free. Thank you so much for making it your first listen today and every day. All you everydayers out there, peace, love to y'all. Truly, I really appreciate y'all. Y'all will keep the lights on in this apartment of mine. So anyway, stay tuned for early next week. We might even have some more recruiting news by then, but you'll have to stop by and find out for yourself on your favorite show, which is, of course, Locked On Baylor.